everything up. I can see everyone there. Crownshot, how are you doing, my man?
Could have won today, but it is what it is.
Yeah, very difficult. We will talk about the game against Fnatic just a little bit later. Gonna do a quick check-in. Ender, you good? You hearing me all right?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Fantastic.
So excellent.
Yeah. There is a little bit of a delay, so gentlemen, I am going to ask you please both to be a little bit patient, and let's give each other a couple seconds to jump in back and forth. I'm going to start with Ender very quickly. Talk to me a little bit about that G2 versus Misfits game. I mean, I don't know why we say G2 versus Misfits. It was Caps versus Misfits. His Cogmore was just disgusting.
Yeah, honestly, it seemed pretty doomed from the get-go for Misfits. They really tried to shut down Caps early, like Razork went for a level 2 gank around mid lane, got the flash and whatnot, but at the end of the day, it was a huge range difference between these two comps, and that's where the value comes from this AP Kog'Maw, and it's AP Kog'Maw alongside an Ezreal as well, and Azir can't get in range to do anything, Set, Mordekaiser, you know, not having fun at all. Kai'Sa, another really short-range ADC, so Caps was able to run all over Misfits in this game, and the AP Kog'Maw might come a little bit out of left field, but it was buffed on patch 10.13. The big buff actually to the damage ratio on the ultimate there, which went up by 0.1, which on paper sounds small, but when you consider that's a 1 to 2 second cooldown on that Kog'Maw ult, you know, scaling down with ranks, that ability does a ridiculous amount of damage now.
I mean, we saw it, 8,000 damage in a single team fight. I mean, it's absolutely ridiculous. We're taking a look at the highlight clips here as well, and I have just been informed that Crownshot has temporarily disconnected. We'll be working to get him back. But I mean, what does this say for the state of Misfits? I mean, at the end of the day, the sort of counter pick, the Cogmore into Azir, it's what we joked about in ReadyJack. I cannot believe it came true, and then it's in the hands of one of the best players in Europe, so no doubt, you know, it pops off.
I mean, honestly, it just seems like G2 won the draft, you know? Like, just straight up. They figured out how to come with the long-range abilities, and Misfits had the right idea. Again, trying to attack Caps early is going to be the play. If you can burn his flash pre-level 6, that means that, you know, Azir offers, you know, immediate kills once he ticks over to level 6 himself. So there were options there for Misfits to play, but honestly, I don't really hold this game against them because I just think G2 came in with a significantly better plan.
Well, listen, that performance there from Caps allowed him to win the Kia Player of the Game. He only got 90% of the vote, which is absolutely ridiculous.
Wait, what are these other 10% doing?
Yeah, exactly. What game were they watching, to be brutally honest with you? So congratulations to Caps. I have to give a special shout out to Pinoy. I think his message to the fans is one of the most heartfelt that I've heard in a very long time, dedicating the win to Perks, as well as then, you know, shouting out the support that he got from everybody. So, you know, huge kudos there. I'm going to take a quick shot here and say, Crowny, have you joined us once again on PGL?
Yes, it should be working, right?
Fantastic. Yes, I hear you loud and clear, my man, and the webcam looks fantastic. Did you manage to catch the G2 versus Misfits game?
Yeah, I watched it.
What did you think of it, and what did you think of the AP Kog'Maw mid?
Well, I think Misfits just didn't have the engage or the range to deal with it, so if they didn't snowball hard early, they would have huge issues against it, so...
Yeah, it definitely feels that way. Well, listen, we're going to move on from that game and talk a little bit more about the rest of the field. Just before we talk about your game earlier today, I want to talk about the fact that there's one game left in the first half of the summer split, summer season. Mad Lions, they're currently sitting in first place. They are followed by Rogue, and then a lot of teams in the middle of the table. Crownshot, talk to me about what the race for playoffs looks like and the fact that it still feels like everybody can beat everybody.
Yeah, I mean, I would say it is actually like that. The games, a lot of them seem to go late game, and there's a lot of fighting around Drakes, and it seems that draft is actually very important. Pretty much anyone can take games of the top teams, so I would say it's very competitive, yeah, in summer.
Do you feel like there are any obvious teams that are not going to make playoffs that do not include Schalke? At the moment, it does feel like there's 9 teams competing for 6 spots, and I want to know who you think, you know, numbers 9, 8, and 7 might be.
I mean, I would say I agree that there's 9 teams competing for spots because even Excel pretty much they took games of us and Vitality and some other teams too, right? So it really feels like there is actually 9 teams. So I guess we'll have to see after the break which teams end up picking up more wins. But right now it seems very competitive.
Ender, what do you think about the race for playoffs when you know that we've only got one game left tomorrow and then we do have that 1 week break before we come back for week 5?
Well, I actually think the 1 week break is really important for a lot of teams. I mean, especially, you know, for teams that may be slumping recently, like I would look at like a Fnatic that lost 4 games in a row and they bounced back today, but sometimes you do need that reset in the middle of a split, and we haven't actually gotten to see that in the LEC so far. So that's almost a bit interesting to me because we've had these break weeks leading up before playoffs, and then all of a sudden you see a very different look for a lot of our different teams jumping on into those. So to see it in the middle of the split actually has the potential to really help out a lot of our teams, especially the ones that are struggling or still underneath the playoffs picture. So when you're looking at like an Excel or Vitality that still aren't, you know, breaking up there, granted they're only just 1 game down, this is their opportunity to sort of, as younger teams, as newer teams, take the learnings they got from the first half of the split and then have an extra 7 days to prepare something moving into the final stretch.
It'll be interesting to see how it's going to pan out. And of course, one of those teams that's, you know, taking a look at playoffs is a little bit of a surprise to definitely myself and many members of the broadcast team. Crowny, it's SK. Talk to me about the game earlier today. First of all, what happened against Fnatic? Why did the game go so wrong from your perspective?
I mean, from my perspective, I think there was one bad skirmish early game, and then the game was actually in a pretty good state for us. We had like 3 dragons and we were all like on our items, but then I pretty much lost it by dying mid. So I pretty much kind of lost it alone mid game, because obviously mistakes like that mean a lot. They got my teammates ended up dying because they tried to save me, and then they got Nash, and then it's hard to play against the 1-for-1 comp with Nash. So I think if we played a bit of the early skirmishes better, we died like once mid where we shouldn't have, then we lost mid tier 1. But the main mistake was me dying on mid lane pretty much, because at that point we were only like 3,000 behind, but we had 3 dragons and the better team fighting comp. So yeah, I would attribute the loss to myself.
Yeah, I mean, I think when you sort of look at that game, I'm pretty much in agreement with you that I think that was a game that you guys could have won. Just looking at like the comps overall, like you said, yeah, stronger team fight team. I definitely agree with that. But it was like, as long as there were objectives to play over, that's where I thought that you guys were always going to win out. And then as soon as there aren't objectives and Fnatic are allowed to go side lanes with the Twisted Fate and the Nocturne on top of that, and once they get Baron buff, it's going to be really difficult for you guys. So I actually like looked at that game, and I wasn't super impressed with Fnatic, and I still actually think you guys played a pretty solid one overall, barring the one mistake, of course, that ended up, you know, making the game go the wrong direction for you guys. I was pleasantly surprised by the first 20 minutes.
If I can jump in there, sorry to cut you off, but if I can jump in there, like Crowny, it's incredible for me to hear. I saw your tweet saying like solo loss, that one's on me. I hear you talking about it and being very like matter of fact. You're one of the players that has always been quite outspoken in my minds. I've loved listening to you in interviews and on things like PGL because you don't hold punches, right? So I love hearing that. I want you to tell me from your perspective, like, why is SK so much better now this summer? Obviously, the introduction of Zazie, Jezzes, etc. But tell me why SK is looking towards the top of the table, why it feels like you are a legitimate contender for playoffs.
Well, I feel like we have a better read on the meta overall, and the champion pool suit us better now, and probably the team synergy overall is better than it was in spring. And because of all of those things, I also think we're playing better individually, and that all of that just leads to better quality, I guess, of gameplay. We don't lose games in early game anymore. Like, we generally either have leads or at least even, so it can actually go to team fights. While in spring, we're just getting pretty much stomped every early game.
I want to have a few more follow-up questions. How has the transition of Genax to the top lane and Zazie in the mid lane been? You know, what impact has that had on somebody like Trick? And then obviously the next steps, which is because we're seeing these other members of the team around you stepping up, you're obviously able to shine a little bit more. So, follow that step for me and tell me how you see it.
I mean, for sure, I think the transition has been pretty good. I think the champion pool suits Janox anyway in the top lane, and his communication and all of this, like playing around TPs, is good, so it wasn't that hard. And I would also say the mid lane meta suits us as well, because he was always known for playing control mages, and it does seem like that's the meta right now. And so we kind of have clear game plans most games. We're just playing for bot lane leads pretty much, and then trying to play for me. So yeah.
Yeah, I'd also say that looking at your guys' early game, I'm glad you guys, have said you think you've improved it. I definitely see that as well. I actually think like Trick is someone in particular who I think has really stepped it up this split and is constantly able to like help find early game leads, especially on like stuff like the set I really like to see him on and all this. And I think that's definitely enabled you guys to have a much better shot, like looking around like these mid-game fights around objectives. Because one of the things that I've talked about a lot on the show is looking at you as a player in particular. I always, we always saw like bright moments with you on SK. Like your Ezreal was always like one of those standout champions, but it felt like maybe there wasn't enough support around you necessarily to like really shine through. But now that like I feel like you and Limit really work well together, the team is stepping up all around you. The nature of the AD carry role seems like if your team is struggling, you almost can't look super great, except on champions like an Ezreal that are a little bit more self-sufficient. So to see everyone sort of step up around you has definitely put a spotlight on you, I think, for both me and a lot of people in the community. And I think you've had a really solid split.
Yeah, I mean, I would also add that in spring, I feel like MF was meta, right? And I feel like MF is a champ where you can't really, there's not that much skill expression, obviously, right? Like you can do early rotations or like the cheater recalls, but most of the time you're just looking for good setup for your ult, but you can't really like carry the game alone like an Aphelios or an Ezreal can on these recent patches with like the Deus Dance and all of this. So I would feel like the meta now has a bit more skill expression on AD carry as well. Yeah.
So the question I have for you now, Crownshot, where do you and SK go for the rest of Summer Split?
Well, I think I don't want to make predictions now and say, oh, we'll make Worlds, we'll make this, but I just want to approach it game by game and just look to improve as much as we can, because I think we can take games of every team, but also lose to pretty much any team, as was shown before, right? So I just like to focus on playing good league, and then the other things will pretty much come by themselves.
I think that's a very, very healthy approach. Talking about game by game, your next game tomorrow is going to be starting off the day taking on Rogue. Let's talk a little bit about that matchup, and then we'll see some of the other games as well. But Rogue just picked up a win today against Origin in, let's say, dramatic fashion. Let's use that word. What can we expect from SK versus Rogue tomorrow?
I mean, I feel like pretty much every game does end up going to like a lot of dragons, always soul. Like I think in that game there was like 6 or 7 dragons, a lot of Nashers, and just a lot of team fighting and a lot of back and forth. It does seem like the meta right now, so I can imagine it will be similar to today, yeah.
What about some of the other matches, Crowny? Fnatic taking on Schalke, G2XL, Misfits, Mad. Do you see any opportunities for an upset there?
I feel like the results are kind of like the winning team is kind of obvious for most of the games. Maybe Vitality against Origin, but I still see Origin winning that pretty much always. So I feel like the results are pretty much known, yeah, for tomorrow. But anything can happen, because a lot of times I feel like draft is a very important factor, which you obviously cannot predict before it happens. So, yeah.
Yeah, speaking of draft, I do want to touch on your game against Rogue tomorrow a little bit, because obviously they've been doing really well so far this split. I'm curious, because my read on Rogue is I see them a lot of the time, like, yes, there's like a lot of scaling options in their draft, but a lot of the time it comes down to them trying to secure like really strong 2v2 bot lane, and then like an early game jungler that like farms well, can do objectives like an Olaf or Trundle, these types of things. I wonder, like, how you think about that going in, because when I see Rogue and they put so much of a focus on like these early objectives and these early dragons and bot lanes, my read on it is basically the team with the stronger bot lane usually ends up getting those objectives earlier on. I'm curious like how you feel about that.
Yeah, I mean, I obviously can't say too much specifically, but I would say their style is kind of similar to us. We also draft pretty similarly, and it is true, yeah, that early drakes are very important, and obviously the easiest way to get early drakes is through bot prio because it's the lane closest to the drakes and it has 2 people, right? So I think they have a very good read on the meta right now, so that's why they're doing so well, and obviously they have very good players.
Yeah.
Crownshot, I have one last question for you. I'd like to say thank you for joining us and for giving your insight. Best of luck for tomorrow. I'm sure you're already aware, but Twitch chat is definitely one of your biggest fans this summer, especially with all the cheers for Crowny. So do you have a message that you'd like to say to Twitch chat and any of your fans or viewers watching at home, either for yourself or SK?
Well, I'd like to just thank them a lot, obviously, because Spring was not easy to play and to watch, I can imagine. So I'd like to say I really appreciate the support, and I'm gonna try to make you guys proud.
Crowny, your smile is very genuine. It makes me very, very happy. Thank you so much for joining me. Best of luck tomorrow. Ender, thank you for joining me on PGL. That is it from us here in the LEC. Be sure to check out Friday Night League later tonight, starting with 100 Thieves versus Golden Guardians. And just as a quick goodbye, thank you again to all the fans and viewers and all the support. It was a very difficult day for the LEC broadcast team, and you guys have made it a lot better for all of us. And thank you to the entire production team for helping to cover what was a challenging situation. From here in Berlin, good night. We'll see you tomorrow for more League of Legends action.
Cries is touching everything. He flashes against the oranges, and Melita doesn't have the package. The cannon barrage gonna slow him down. Oh, Cries. Oh. Like now he doesn't have the gargoyles. One more order from that Rangers Cripple will be enough. Gets him down, but Patrick jumps forward. There's the shutdown on the comp. Melita jumped on by Special, but the hook comes out. Special still gets the shutdown. Lebrov's gonna fall as well. Humanoid's almost down, but he manages to survive. And the Yumi and the heals are just too much. Ilias is dead. Humanoid's alive. And there goes the dreams of Schalke. The hook misses again from Dreams. Oh, never go fishing, Dreams.
It's not, let's give you some more.
Dreams goes, plays Animal Crossing, and just never catches anything.
Down, will take it out before he gets a chance to use any of his cooldowns. The Scion knockup is there. They want to turn this one around. Crownshot and Zazie remained untouched. Crownshot leaping forward again, though, but it's Whippo on the backside. He's going to get the reset. He's going to get the fear. That's going to move out of the Gen X.
It's this pit. Here comes another TP.
They're burning everything. Every single resource left in the game. Hansama going forward. Maybe can
Oh
Syndra
no,
steal
Syndra.
it? Syndra's looking for the setup. He's going to get it! Hansama, are you kidding me? Rogue throw the entire game away. OG win a beautiful fight, but it's not enough. Baby Origin, no more. Rogue moving up once again to the top of the table. Dust's on the way now. They have to be careful. All goes down to the Mickey Cap stage, which has to be respected, though. That's disgusting. No wonder they want to pick this champion, but now it's Febiven on the backside. Where's the Devour cooldown? It's not available, which means Caps goes down. Febiven die here? Oh, just barely able to live. But from Caps, welcome to the LEC Pinoy.